You are listening to the Conquering Everest podcast. This is episode 20. This is the Conquering Everest podcast. My name is Brian Talor, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for choosing to spend a bit of your day here with me. Now, today's episode is one you're not going to want to miss. I have a conversation with Tommy Walker, the mind engineer. Tommy specializes in rapid subconscious reprogramming. His mission is to get rid of whatever it is that's holding us back. The subconscious mind is one of those things that has long intrigued me. The mind in general has long intrigued me. And what you're going to learn today is however we respond consciously, well, that's going to send signals to the subconscious mind. And I heard from someone somewhere down the line that the subconscious mind does not know the difference between real and fiction. It just assumes that everything that it's being told is true and it's going to respond accordingly. But you know what? I'm not the mind expert. So let's go ahead and without further ado, let's get to my conversation with the mind engineer, the mind expert, Tommy Walker. Tommy Walker, welcome to the Conquering Everest podcast.
Thank you very much, Brian, for having me here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation because you have a topic or a subject that really has intrigued me, and that is rapid subconscious programming. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of that, though, would you like to go ahead and just share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Yes, of course. So I've been on a personal development path for over now 12 years, studying mostly how the mind works and how to start changing habits that we've been carrying around for many years. So for the last 12 years, sorry, now 12 years, I've been learning how the mind works, how the subconscious mind, how the conscious mind are interacting among themselves, and how is it that we can start making changes faster in our lives by reprogramming the mind.
Very good. And when we think of the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind, for anyone that's listening that maybe don't know the difference or haven't heard that before, what is the difference between the subconscious and conscious minds?
Yes, so Brian, the conscious mind would be, to give it a very easy example, is when you go to the supermarket and you're like, oh, I want to buy this or that. Go to the restaurant, I want to grab a fish with salad to eat. You're constantly thinking of what you're going to get. The subconscious mind is running process in the background and it's all the time on. So the subconscious mind is made up of many things and mostly of all our past memories. So what I tell people whenever they want to deal with procrastination, with self-doubt, low self-esteem or things like that, instead of just or pushing their way to taking actions or pushing their way to feel more confident, whatever it is, or just throwing affirmations, consciously saying affirmations, what's going to happen is that if in our past memories we have an incident that happened, maybe then it got reinforced, but a first incident or a couple of times that where I was rejected by my parents, maybe I wasn't behaving, so my dad screamed at me, or I was slapped because I didn't say the right thing, or I said something that was bad. And when that happens, we start creating our belief system in our subconscious mind. So what does that mean? If my dad slapped me, I'm going to start thinking that I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, there's something wrong with me, because I cannot understand at that age between 0 to 7 that when my dad is hitting me is because he is not dealing correctly with what's going on. Or that was his past experience when he was a kid. He was slapped, he was yelled at. So now he's repeating the pattern. So many times when we're repeating patterns, those patterns come from the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is trying to protect us. So it's going to see if I want to start a business, if I want to go out on a date, if I want to ask a raise from my boss. The subconscious mind is going to go back to your belief system and say, okay, do you, Brian, deserve. Like, imagine I'm your subconscious mind. You say, I'm going to go do ask for a date. I am your subconscious mind going to say, wait, let me see in our file, what does the past memory say around doing something new, doing something different, something that maybe you're not used to, asking for a beautiful woman with a guy, ask for a raise, something that we haven't done much. Because the first time we do it, moving out of our comfort zone, that's when we get triggered a lot. And the memories from the subconscious mind are going to be checked to see if there's something associated what we want to do today. So if I feel I'm not good enough, it's going to make it very difficult to go and talk in a good way to my boss and ask for a raise. I might go and maybe stutter a little bit, doubt about it. And my boss can come back and say, like, no, tell me, this is not the right time, or blah, blah, blah. And why is it that some people just push it a bit forward and say, no, Brian, wait, hey, I want a raise. I've been here for this amount of time doing all these jobs, description, blah. I want a raise. I'm not saying that this is an option. I want this. Some people that can sound much more confident and asking for something than others, like, would you mind if I ask you for a date? Or would you mind, boss, if I ask you for a little raise? What do you think about that? Like, you're doubting yourself. And all of that comes from past experiences. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah, no, it does. So when you hear about the fight or flight response, is that the subconscious mind driving that?
So there's several things, like we can go into a little bit more in depth on how the mind is. We have the reptile brain in there, that is the survival one. So it can be a little bit more complicated. Let's do it to a basic level. Imagine that you gotta ask for a date and you go into the fight or flight mode. Many times in that case, it has to do with limiting negative and false beliefs in the subconscious mind. It's not an actual threat, but you have had experiences in the past that made you, again, feel that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve, that you're not lovable. And you get very nervous and you get maybe into this fight or flight because your belief system says that you don't deserve X amount of money to go out with this person, to have a, I don't know, have a tech talk or whatever it is, that you want. It's going to push you away, paralyze you, or run away from it because your belief system doesn't accept that as a possibility. Make sense?
Yeah. So let me ask you a little bit about your introduction to the mind and choosing to make it a business path for you. Was there something in your past that was a limiting belief, or I mean, how did you get involved with the subconscious mind?
Yes. So the truth is that in my case, I felt, for my parents or my brothers and sisters, they think in a way that it was my perception. So I say this, in my perception, when I was a kid, I believed I was the black sheep of the family. Okay. So
Mm.
during all my life, what I felt is that whenever I wanted to do something, my parents would judge that action, whatever I was trying to do or achieve or things like that. And I was very emotional. So for my parents, me being very emotional, they were not always, but several times saying, like, Tommy, don't be so emotional. Tommy, don't do this. That's too emotional. Things like that. So I started believing that there was something wrong with me. I went to school. In school, I was the bullets kid at school because I was very emotional. I didn't like fighting. I liked more playing with the girls than with the guys because guys were, for in my perception, more violent than what I accepted towards what I wanted. So I tended to be more with women, with girls in that case. And again, that seemed weird. I didn't like soccer. I didn't like sports. I mean, I um, I was different. I like nature and I like bird watching. So again, being a kid and liking the and magic, being a kid and loving those things, it was a little bit weird to the norm. But the truth is, we are unique. So back then, if you didn't fit, and even today, back then for me, when I didn't fit, people would make fun of me, would laugh, would bully me. Now I understand that when I was a kid, the good thing is I never tried to fit in. Most of the time, I was myself, and we're all unique. But I learned that down the road. So for many years, I struggled. I was never happy. I started working. I made a lot of money, and I wasn't happy. I was making when I was 18. I was making as much money as my dad was making a month, and I decided to quit and go travel because I didn't like what I was doing. I wasn't happy. So I kind of tried to run away from my problems, from my family, from my friends that were not supporting me. And I just went and traveled. Some year later, I came back to my country. Things still weren't going well. And a friend of mine told me, tell me, there's a woman that I'm seeing. She's a mentor coach that I think you're going to love it because she speaks about things you spoke to me when we were 15 or 16. When I was 15 or 16, I read the Celestine Prophecy, the book, and I loved it, thinking about something more than just this life. But I was the only kid at school that was talking about this. So again, I was the bullied kid at school because I was talking about energy, about chakras, about the aura around us, about spirituality, meditation. And I shut up because I was a weirdo. And then again,
Mm.
20 years later, a little bit less, maybe 15 years later, this friend of mine finds a woman that is talking about the same things about mindset, meditation, and many of the things I was learning when I was a kid. And he said, you got to go see her. So when I got in there, Brian, my life just started to change. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't overnight. It took a while, but as I did the work and I keep doing it today and I keep finding limiting negative and false beliefs in the subconscious mind and I changed that, my life has changed. Like I went from a failed marriage to my second marriage that we're deeply in love. We got two kids. We have our ups and downs. Don't get me wrong. Everything is not just, happiness all the time because sometimes we fight, we're tired, we have discussions, but we're deeply in love. We have two beautiful kids. I moved from the city that I didn't like to live in the mountains. I started several businesses. They all failed. I started another business. I struggled with that business for like 6 years. And now that business has grown immensely and it's well known around in our area or expertise. We're well known around different countries in the world. I've been invited to conferences around the world to talk about emergency care and also about mindset. So it's like my life took a big spin when I started getting rid and changing my belief system because deep down I started reprogramming my subconscious mind and changing who I thought I was. Make sense?
Yeah, no. So, the mind is like any other muscle. You're never really done training it. Just like if you wanted to take care of your physical health, you would go to the gym or exercise or eat right. And, you can't just do that for a short period of time and then say, okay, I'll never, you know, um, I'll never have to worry about my health again. It's a consistent. You've got to keep after it. It just doesn't fix itself one day and you don't you can just walk away and forget about it. You have to keep training it. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, 100% true. The mind, in that sense, it's not the same, but it's very similar to the muscles in our body. If you want to have a fit body, you got to eat well, you got to do exercise. The mind is the same. Eating well is our thoughts. What do we think about ourselves? What are our self talks? And of course, doing exercise like meditation, reflection, self awareness. And it's, as you said it, and I loved it, this is a journey. It's something that you start and you're never done till you are illuminated or enlightened. Okay, you're walking over water or you're dead. And my idea is or to walk over water or be dead, but that's till the time I'm going to do this work. I've been doing it for 12 years and I love it. Again, it has changed
Yeah.
my relationship with my family, relationship with my wife, with my kids, and I keep changing it again. Like it's unbelievable how we have been programmed since kids in every area. Like I talk to people and money bad, money corruption, failure bad, failure the worst thing in the world. And today I was working with a woman that she's really stuck in her life, and we started understanding a little bit what's going on. And she has put together failure as the worst thing in the world because of past experiences. But as we started talking about some experiences that she thought she failed, she started understanding how much she had learned from that. So, Brian and listeners, whenever you went through what you think was a failure that brought you down, destroyed your life, whatever it is, write a list. Let me give you a homework for you guys. Write a list of the things that you learned out of that situation you went through. And I guarantee that if you put your brain to it and you dedicate time to it and don't take this as an easy work, I'm just going to sit down, write a couple, no, at least 10 or more things that you learned out of a failure, you're going to start changing already your mind into, oh, wow, a failure is not something bad. But nobody taught us that, Brian. We went to school and they taught us geography, history, math and so many
Yeah.
things that, yeah, they're useful in some aspects, but they haven't taught us the most important thing in life, that failure is the best thing that can happen to us because we can learn from it. It's a stepping stone. I'm not saying that you got to fail all the time, but it's nice to, of course, have success. But to have success, and I found that the hard way, I had to fail in so many businesses to learn from them to be able to improve myself for the next business and the next business and the next business. And I am still improving myself in my business. And as I improve myself, my business grows. I improve myself, my business grows. So my business is a reflection of how I am doing inside of me.
So in today's day and age, there's a lot of focus and emphasis on mental health, and we've got extraordinary number of especially teenagers and young people that are going through depression, anxiety. It's all built up. And I know from what you've said, it's kind of, how were you raised, what was enforced or emphasized in your family. But if we think back, over the last, let's say, 40 years, what would you contribute, or do you contribute any certain thing towards the decline? I want to say decline of mental health, but that, I don't know if decline is the right word, or that just wasn't talked about enough back in the 70s and 80s and so forth. But have you identified any, like, one what am I trying to say, certain pattern that's kind of evolved to where we're at here in 2021?
What a good question. I love what you just asked me. So, putting a little bit together what I have studied, okay, and what's going on, what I can say, I'm not saying this is a study that somebody put out there, that this is my conclusion out of all the years on it. I'm just giving it some thought to what you just brought to me. What I think that as we are getting into this, we're already here, sorry, as we are already here to
Mhm.
this, everything happened right away, with the internet, with how back when we were kids, Brian, we didn't see a lot of TV on what were supposedly role models, how our kids should look, what we should buy, what we should have. There were magazines, there were newspaper, where we didn't have so much access. So what I think, as I'm listening to myself talking about this and reviewing what I've been saying, everything, what I believe is that there, it was in the past, there were problems in the past, but right now is with those, this new era that we're going through in the past 30, 40 years with internet and all those things that are coming up. What's happening is people are being bombarded like very hard with what they need to be happy, what they need to accomplish, what they need to have, what, how they need to behave, what clothes they need to have, what car, whatever, what house. It's like we're being bombarded. What should we, how should we look, how we should we fit in to be able to, yeah, be happy, be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what you said really kind of, fired a few of the synopsises or whatever in my brain as I'm thinking, as you were answering today's day and age, we are hit with so much more marketing,
Yeah.
clothes and personality and music, and yeah, that's something. As a kid, my worry, as preteen years, was getting home from school, watching a cartoon maybe, and then playing with some toys,
Yeah.
and I could even see it. I've got two teenage boys of my own,
Yeah.
and that childlike years, the years that you play with toys and you watch cartoons and all that, that was very short for them. Because I remember, for me,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
I don't think I started to transform into a young man until I got to be about 13 or 14.
Mm.
Before that, I was doing what kids typically do: ride bikes, go
Yeah.
to parks. And my kids, I would say, they were out of that phase by the time they were 11 or 12, and they were
Mhm.
already doing, like, looking at grown-up stuff like sports and
Yeah.
different things. The So let's get into a little bit about what you teach. You've got this rapid subconscious reprogramming, and you've got some training and some books, and we'll definitely talk about those here in a little bit. But when you work with somebody, what's the process like?
Yeah. So the process I'm going to share with you, I share with everyone. It's a little bit even in the book, in the trainings that I do. There's no hidden thing in there, so I don't mind opening it up. Okay. But it's a little bit weird. To some people, it might sound weird, but I'm going to give the explanation. I always say if I say something about someone or about something, I want to back it up so that at least it resonates a little bit, or not, maybe not. Some people don't like these type of things that I got to say, but it's
Right.
okay. We're all unique. Some people resonate with what I say or not. That's fine. So the subconscious mind, Brian, is made up of our past memories, how I was saying. So it's like a movie playing in the back of our head constantly with all our memories. So those memories, the good thing is that they're not stuck. What does that mean? Is the subconscious mind has no time. So I can go back into the subconscious mind to find a little Tommy. Imagine, to give an example, when I was a kid, I went back to a little Tommy that my dad hit me. I did something wrong, of course. I was a kid. I did something wrong, but the
Mhm.
problem was instead of my dad talking to me, punishing me, talking to me, you're not gonna have TV, you're not gonna ride a bike, whatever it is. He had sometimes a temper of hitting because that's how he was treated. So he came down and hit
Right.
me pretty hard on my butt and on my head. Like on my head, he just pinned my world. I still can remember. It was wow. I have never been hit like that before. So what we do in the work we do is we go back into those memories to find that little Tommy, and we connect with that little Tommy. We ask him, because again, it's a subconscious mind, it's a memory from the past, but it's separate than you. It's part of your memory, and you can bring it up and you can feel like, if I tell you, Brian, don't you have a special place that when you were a kid you went through, or a pet that you can even start crying today because of a pet you had in your past? So it means that
Mhm.
it's alive inside of your mind. Because why is it that you're crying? Because you miss your pet or the house in this place or whatever. It means that there's still that memory is so alive inside of you. So what we do is go and interact. You, big Brian, go and interact with little Brian. And I want to make a big distinction here, Brian, because a lot of people say like, oh, but that's like shadow work, inner child healing, um, other names, inner child healing, shadow work, and so many others that are out there. Yeah, they're very similar. But the big trick, a quote unquote trick here that we learned and now teach, is that first we need to understand what little Tommy is going through, what little Brian is going through. Like imagine this, Brian, and a lot of people do it. Your kid just fell off the bike, and you're like, "Oh, come on, stand up. Nothing happened. It's okay. You're fine." We just denied the experience that little Brian or your little kid is going through. So what we teach is
Mhm.
we need to actually say, "Hey, how are you? Are you okay? What are you feeling?" So we stretch ourselves out there to reach out to our little self, or we can even do this with our kids, and it's amazing how they change. Yeah, they can cry, they can feel, till I ask him how he was doing, instead of just saying you're fine, nothing happened, he just starts crying when I do that. Okay, but there's a mechanism there that has been acquired from the past, because maybe if you've done that from the beginning, being there supporting him from the beginning or her from the beginning, he might be acting differently today. Because kids that suddenly, when you say, oh, are you okay, whatever, they might be crying or showing their emotions, negative emotions. It's fine. Brian, how many as a kid did you listen to your parents saying, don't cry, don't be scared, don't be this, don't be that?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
denying our experience, right?
So you just kind of that just it just becomes numb
Exactly.
to the child. Like, because an example I was thinking as you were talking is, um, have a little nephew, and he was over the other day, and he was, doing what kids do, and he's not even 2 yet, so but he's walking and
Mhm.
he's climbing on stuff and he's wanting to explore the world, and he fell, and and as soon as he fell and he hit the floor, I could see in his eyes he didn't know if he should cry or if he should get up and kind of laugh it off. He was like looking at me, waiting for me to tell him, almost like tell him what to do, whether he should, because does it hurt, so you should cry, or
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
eh, so it's kind of, you're just dulling that sense, I guess, if you tell him don't cry, don't cry. I'm glad because when he got up, I'm like, "Hey, you're okay, right? Is anything hurt?" And kind of just checked on him, and he was fine and went about and he went back to climbing and
Yeah.
doing all the stuff that he was doing.
Exactly.
Now, for me, I think of a time back in my history when I was like 4, maybe 5 years old. My cousin and I were outside and we were playing superheroes, right? And he was
Yeah.
Spider Man and he was going to climb over everything, and I was Superman. And at one point, I'm like, he's impressing me with his abilities to climb the trees and jump and do all this stuff. I'm like, well, I can fly.
Yeah.
No, you can't fly. I'm like, yeah, I can fly. So I climbed the staircase and I jumped. Well, of
Oh.
course, gravity did what gravity does. I hit the ground, broke my nose.
Oh.
Um, and I don't remember how my mother came out and responded to that, but from that day forward, I did not want to climb up on anything.
Mm.
I was terrified of climbing trees and all that stuff
Yeah.
until I finally, enough peer pressure from my friends to say, "Hey, come do this with us." And then I do it and realize, okay, this isn't so bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of, that subconscious that instantly locks in and says,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're hurt, you're going to cry, and then you're going to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
You better not climb again." So
And you know what's
that's
the
it's
worst, Brian? It's not even the hospital. It's how mom and dad react. Because if I lose mom and
yeah.
dad's love, either of them, maybe both or either, because I did this and now mom is angry at me. If somebody's angry at you, they cannot be loving you at the same time as a kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happens?
Well, that
I
and
associate, if I hurt myself, I lose mom's love. So I cannot hurt myself. That could be, I'm not saying it's your case, but that could be an association that the mind does. I get hurt, mom doesn't love me.
yeah. Well, and actually, you saying that, we grew up poor. We didn't have money, and we were on. We'd get assistance from the government.
Yeah.
So to do something like go to the hospital wasn't like
Mm.
a cheap thing for my
Yeah.
mom. and
Mm.
and I because I'd always remember, like, if I as I got older and I would get hurt, she's like, well, what do you think you need to go to the hospital?
Mm.
Because if you don't, we're not gonna. And I
Yeah.
think now that you're talking about this, I can see where I maybe accepted that as the truth is, if I get hurt and I go tell mom, she's going to worry about money, and I don't want
Mm.
her to worry about the
There.
money, so I'm
Yes.
just not going to be hurt.
There you go.
That's interesting.
And the other
The
thing, look, for to
um,
go deeper, Brian, as you're asking me, this is for you to do on your own, okay? But to check is your mom is telling you in a way, but you got to check this. I'm not saying, but it might be like you're not important. You're not as important as money or as, because if you get hurt, I got to check that you are really hurt to go to hospital. Like, you
mhm,
know, so many times what I've seen also is that we start drawing conclusion like, oh, I'm not good enough. Because if I get hurt and mom is doubting
yeah,
about taking care of me in the hospital, or whatever, it might be that I'm not good enough. So the mind is so quick in developing these conclusions out of the events we go through. So again, as you said, we grew up poor. So maybe you might have in your mind something assigned negatively to money, you know so all
right,
these things are the things that we need to start acknowledging and accepting as, okay, I have valid reasons to feel that I don't want to get hurt, to feel that I don't want to spend money, whatever it is, or feel sad or feel depressed. I have valid reasons, but I can change that. We don't dwell in the past. Don't get me wrong, Brian, because other people say, but Tommy, you're dwelling in the past. No, I'm not dwelling. What I'm doing is going to little Brian and changing the perception that he had, that if he got hurt, he lost mom's love or mom would feel blah, whatever. That was mom. That was
yeah,
on mom, not on you. So, yes, you are
yeah.
the byproduct of your past, but also in a positive way, but also in a negative way, because all those limiting negative and false beliefs are holding you back today.
Let me ask you this: can
Yeah.
an individual go back and, as an adult, there's trauma, like,
Yeah.
I had trauma and different things in my life as a kid.
Yes.
Would it be possible for me to go back into my mind, into the subconscious mind, and retell the story? So maybe instead of saying, hey, I was, I dealt with emotional abuse growing up,
Mm.
could I convince my subconscious mind that no, I wasn't emotionally abused. I was lifted up, and I was always told I was
Mm.
confident and good looking. Can
Yeah.
you trick the subconscious mind?
I've heard people do it and they do it, but I don't believe that's the right way to go. And let me put it my point of view and my perspective on this. So as I was telling you, the mind is dynamic, it's running in your mind, but it doesn't mean that if something happened you can just repress it, because again, if you're doing that, you're repressing a part of your past. Make sense?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
by doing that, I don't think that's the right way to go. What I believe, Brian, I've been doing this for many years, again, 12 years for myself and helping people all around the world. What I do is I go back and I retell the story of the perception of what happened. So again, my dad hit me. So what did I tell little Tommy? Hey, little Tommy, I went through a process. I connected. I acknowledged it. I accepted that he was feeling like shit, like a piece of shit, or like not good enough because dad was screaming and yelling and beating him up, right? So what I told
Hmm.
little Tommy, after understanding how he felt and everything, connecting at a deep level, because that's the most important. If you don't connect at a deep level in the subconscious mind, again, you are repressing, you're not reprogramming. And it is very subtle, the difference, but the words are very, it's very obvious, but the exercise is very subtle, that a lot of people are repressing their past. So they go back to the past and say again, hey, you fell, don't worry, it's fine, I'm here now, I will love you, don't worry, you know, yeah, that hit you, but he's a jerk,
Yeah.
blah, whatever. And now I get you out of that state. And I've seen people do it. I've been seeing videos on YouTube. I like investigating and see what other people are doing. And I've seen a lot of people that they just take that kid out of that situation and say everything's going to be fine. Don't worry, I'm here now. I love you. I care for you. Blah. And that doesn't work
Yeah.
as in reprogramming. It's repressing more. So again, what do we need to do is explain to little Tommy, after opening that subconscious mind to be able to be reprogrammed. Tommy, your dad hit you. Yes, you have valid reasons to believe that you're not good enough, or to feel that you're not good enough because what dad did to you. But I want to tell you something. Dad hit you because he has issues, because he was beaten up by his dad, and how he's doing the same to you. But it doesn't have to do with who you are, if you're loving, if you're good enough, if you're worthy. It has to do with how he deals with stress or with whatever. So I have a deep conversation with little Tommy, explaining him exactly the story, the correct story. It's not even changing the truth, because the truth is, yeah, my dad was a jerk and he beat me up. But me, Tommy, little Tommy, cannot see that. And he believes that he had a problem. That's why dad hit him. You see the difference?
So in talking about, mechanisms to work on the mind, depending on who you listen to or what you watch, you could be told
Hmm.
different things. I'd just
Yeah.
like to get your opinion on a few of the popular ones. So something that when I got, and which was later in my life, I had to overcome fears and insecurities that I had been carrying as a kid,
Hmm.
and as I first got involved with, okay, I'm going to transform my thinking. Of course, I hear a lot about, well, meditation, positive affirmations, even going as far as writing a story
Hmm.
about the life you desire. What's your opinion on some of those other popular, you know, mechanisms for working with the mind?
Okay, Brian, I do most of them. I visualize the life that
Okay.
I want. I visualize affirmation. I do affirmations every morning. I read to myself wins. I have gratitude. I have meditation, breath work. Like I have a morning routine that goes, it varies depending on kids' school hours and different things, if I how late I want to sleep or not. It varies between 45 minutes to an hour and a half. Mostly I meditate between an hour and a half, but sometimes it changes depending on some things, family dynamics. But
Hmm.
normally I try to do at
Yeah.
least 45 minutes to an hour before I start my day, so I can be more connected with myself. And the more connected with myself, I can connect with my clients at a deeper level to help them change their life. So again, everything you mentioned, I believe in it, but let's start talking about this. And this is one of the hardest thing, that people listen and they kind of reject their belief system, because now with all this media, all that's going on, it's like everybody's talking, if you want to be successful in life, in business, blah blah blah, you gotta meditate, do breath work, affirmations. And yeah, it is all true, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. But Brian, if you don't feel good enough and you go meditate, that's not going to reprogram your subconscious mind about feeling not good enough. So if your intention is to move away from the pain that you're having, you had a fight with your kids are not listening, you had a fight with your wife, and suddenly you just go to meditate to move away from the pain, it would be, it's not the same, don't get me wrong, but it would be the same thing as going to a bar and drinking a whiskey. Why? Because you're looking
Mm.
for somehow to move away from the pain. Of course, I'd
A
rather have
quick
you doing
fix.
medit exactly. I'd rather you meditate instead of going to the bar and drinking whiskey, don't get me wrong. But people are convincing themselves that because they're practicing these new techniques, that they're not new, they've been around for many years, but they now, these people
Hmm.
are saying like, oh, now I'm meditating, Brian, it just changed my life. Each time I feel down, I go meditate. Okay, but what do you do with the meditation? I go meditate. Do you reflect on why you're sad? Do you reflect on why you're angry? Do you let go this anger from you? No, I just think positive thoughts. Sorry, Brian. You're just doing a quick fix and it's not. You're repressing, again, the kid that fell on the floor, positive thoughts. Nothing happened. You're fine. So you're rejecting your past experience where something triggered you. So again, your wife said, Brian, you should have done this. Why didn't you do it? So you got angry because she is telling you that you did something wrong. But under the anger,
Hmm.
let's go quick so we don't spend a lot of time on this, but so that the listeners and you, Brian, can understand. Under the anger, the emotion, there's a negative belief. She made me feel not good enough. She made me feel not worthy. She made me feel not loved, right? So I
Yeah.
believe I'm not lovable. So now what my wife did was just struck me where it hurts. Most people, what they do, Brian, they go meditate, run, sing, put music, whatever it is to lift them up. If you're looking yourself to get lifted up by a public speaker, by a motivational speaker, by listening to music, whatever it is, you are denying the experience. You're not growing, you're just repressing. And I'm sorry, but I gotta be
Hmm.
honest because a lot of people do this. I sometimes do it, Brian. Don't get me wrong. I move away from the pain from maybe sitting down and doing some work, on doing something that is good. Don't get me wrong, meditation. But if I'm doing that out of the intention to move away from the pain, I'm not learning. I'm just letting the pain
So you
fade away inside of me, but it's still inside of
right.
me.
So it sounds like to me like you really want to address something bad happens, whether it's physical or emotional pain.
Yeah.
You want to you want you it sounds like you actually want to focus on that pain to understand where it comes from, why you are perhaps responding the way you are, which maybe you could track back to childhood,
Yeah.
understanding what the other person or whatever the case may be, what led them to this moment in time. Is that kind of what
Yep. A
you
hundred
know what
percent.
that? Okay, yeah,
Unfortunately,
and
Brian,
yeah,
most people, sorry, I was like, most people, what they do is, oh, you're dwelling in the past. Oh, the past
yeah.
happened. You got to forget about the past. Don't think negative because you're going to attract more negative. That's BS. Because if I'm learning from the negativity to grow out of a failure, can I grow? Yes. So if I'm learning, and again, look, I'm going to give you an example that I was working with a woman lately that she was working at a big company, and this big company, she didn't have a important degree, but she was working with guys that had degrees from Harvard and other big universities in the States. And
Mm,
each time she went in a meeting with these guys, she got really, really nervous. Her hands started sweating. Her voice started, shaking a little bit. It didn't look very evident, but she was very nervous. So we went into her subconscious mind in one of the exercises we did, and we found a 6 year old that had gone to school. Mom didn't care much about her. She was kind of, the girl that mom didn't pay much attention. So she had a dictation. She didn't study because nobody told her to study. She was 6 years old. Come on. She went to the dictation,
right.
and the nun there started screaming at her really bad because she hadn't studied and because she was doing bad in the dictation. So she really made her feel like crap. And when I started asking this little girl how she was feeling, it was the exact same thing she was feeling as an adult in the meetings she had with these big shots. So it was repeating again the same pattern.
Right. So when we think about today, in 2021
Yeah.
and in the handful of years that came before this, obviously, everybody's looking at mental health. We talked about that a little bit. And if you have this suppressed pain, and it's leading to insecurities, it's leading to fears, and that's bringing you down. And I think doctors, medical doctors, or even psychiatrists, and this is Brian's opinion. I don't know. I haven't
Mhm.
done the research on it, but I feel like there is a quick move to, okay, let's just start putting medicines in your body. And I guess medicines on their own, they serve a purpose, and I guess they're not necessarily a bad thing. But when you make that decision, like, hey, I really want to reprogram my thinking, is the medicine, in your opinion, does the medicine conflict, or are you able to reprogram your mind even if you're on, say, a medicine for anxiety, which brings you, it slows you down a little bit, or
Mm.
something to that effect? Can the medicines and the training work hand in hand?
Okay. So I'm going to give you my personal opinion. I haven't done studies around this, so I cannot tell you like in a statistic way, but I can tell you I'm working right now with a woman that she's, being medicated, and we're working together, and she is reprogramming the mind. She's finding sometimes a little bit more difficult to connect with the negative emotions, to be able to let them go, because again, we get energy stored inside of us from all these negative things that we went through as kids, and emotions, and these emotions need to be processed and need to be let go. And this is kind of the process we go through with this. So she is letting go and she's feeling much better, but sometimes maybe it has nothing to do with meds. I'm not saying it has to do with that, but what I've seen in her, and she even told me that it's like she find it a bit difficult to express what's going on. Like she find it a bit difficult to connect with their negative emotions. But I have other people that are not under meds, and sometimes they find it difficult to connect. So I cannot say it's exactly that, but you can still do the work while on meds. Make sense?
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's something that I've thought about, as I've gotten into, personal development, and even coaching and mentoring. And I always I'm very careful because I'm not a medical doctor, nor
Mhm.
do I pretend to be.
Mhm.
But it's something that I've always kind of wondered about, if there was a suppression there. But
But
let's
look,
let's
Brian,
talk
one
about
thing,
what's
sorry,
it.
one thing about this, so
Mhm.
we finish this. On my personal opinion, as you said, my personal opinion is if you are using the meds to disconnect from the pain, it's now good.
Yeah,
If you don't deal with
it's
your
kind of
past
back
and
to
you
that.
have if you're just having the meds to forget about your past, that's where I think personally that it's not the good way to go. So I would recommend, if a psychiatrist or psychiatrist is giving meds to someone or recommending meds to someone, there has to be other work in parallel to change that person's mind so that then they can let go of the medications and feel better, right?
Yeah. Do you think there's enough focus on the mind nowadays, in training the mind?
There's more and more, but I still think that it's not enough. Seriously, like if you see the
Yeah.
numbers, depression, like Brian, I started all of this because I wanted to change. Look what I'm going to say. It's going to sound a very big, dream, but I started in EMS, emergency care services. Okay, I started in the States. I became an emergency medical technician, and then I started a training facility in my country in Argentina. That's the business I've been running now for 17 years. Now I'm stepping aside a little bit because I'm with a lot of work with mindset. I just want to go this way right now. And I started with all the mindset applied to emergency care because if you look at emergency care, the amount of police, fire, doctors, paramedics that they're taking their life, they're committing suicide because of all this pressure they have on top of them. I thought in my naive mind, and we're talking about 5 6 years ago, sorry, that I wanted to change
Hmm.
the EMS system around the world with these techniques so that EMS numbers and police, fire, military could start coming down, depression, addiction, PTSD, and even suicide. I was rejected so many times from so many conferences and different people I talked to. Like, what are you talking about? That is all crap, Tommy. What is your basis? They were just denying everything. So what I believe, at least what I've seen in EMS, if you look at the numbers, it's alarming. If you look at military, it's alarming how big the numbers are of people that are depression, PTSD, complex PTSD, and so many other mental problems that they have developed because they don't have these tools. Because again, look, to give you an idea, Brian, one of the biggest lie that they teach in med school and paramedics and EMS, all of that, is that we're here to save lives. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's crap. We're not here to save lives. We can save a life. Don't get me wrong. We can save a life, but I'm not here to save a life. Because if I believe in that crap that I'm here to save lives, what's going to happen when I deal with a death? The first death in med school, in paramedic school, and whatever, somebody that is just starting their career strikes them so hard because they're not ready. So I started all of this because of that mental health towards EMS. And as I got so much rejection, they didn't want to listen, they don't care, blah, blah, blah. I just moved away and said, okay, I'm going to look for people that are going to be interested. So I just went out to look for people not related to EMS. Somebody comes over and wants to work with me, then EMS, of course. But it's not something that I offer some lectures and some conferences, but the reaction wasn't, they didn't feel comfortable with what I was saying because, again, EMS is all about saving lives. So how can a
Yeah.
guy come over and say that you're not here to save lives? That bothers a lot of people. So they just kicked me out from several
Right.
places. The superhero.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see. Yeah, because I think when you say something like that, it for some people it may strike them as, well, that's my purpose,
Yeah.
and if I don't save a life, then I'm not living my purpose. But really, I guess with an EMT especially, and this is coming from somebody that has no experience in that world, it's more of well, and I guess in a way I do, because I work in network security,
Mhm.
and I've been a responder. It wasn't my job to prevent 100% people from breaking into a
Yeah.
computer system. It was my job to respond if something happened,
Yeah.
and respond in such a way that it minimizes the impact. So,
You just said
well,
it,
let's talk.
minimize the impact, but could you prevent it from happening?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
not in this world. There's just way too many,
Yeah.
way too many. Well, they say, like with the in security, the bad guys, they only need to get it right once
Yeah.
to get what they want.
Yeah.
The good guys, we have to get it right every single time,
Yeah.
and it's not
Correct.
not possible.
There you go.
Well, Tommy, let's talk a little bit about you've got a website, some training, and some books,
Hmm.
and perhaps even more. You want to talk a little bit about what you have out there for people to check
Yeah.
out?
If people want to learn more about this that I'm talking about and doesn't sound crazy going back into your subconscious mind and talking to yourself, a lot of people love it, but I still find people out there saying like that is nonsense and things like that. And that's fine with me. So if you want to learn more about what I do, I have some free material on my website. I have some free trainings around training and reprogramming the mind. I also wrote, it's one book, but I converted it into two. So you're going to see two books. If you go on the website, you start looking. The two books, they're pretty much the same, but one is directed to entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur for 24 years and I struggled for many. And that's why I try to use the mind side of entrepreneurship to help people move forward with their business. So there's a mindset secret for success and mindset secret for entrepreneurs. It's nearly the exact same book, but the examples and a bit of things change a little bit towards entrepreneurship or non-entrepreneurs. So if people want to go into the website, it's unleashingyourmindset.com. Or if not easier, they can put Tommy the Mind Engineer on Facebook and they're going to find my profile. I got a couple of profiles because I got blocked from Facebook. We all know Facebook, when you are doing a lot of
Yeah.
things on Facebook. I got blocked a couple of times. So I created a couple of just backup plans. But the main one says Tommy Walker, the Mind Engineer. You cannot miss it. You're going to see it. You can go to my website. You can find a lot of material I have there. I have a lot of stuff that's for free to help people. And if somebody wants to move forward and maybe work with me, they can find out more information there too.
All right. And could you go ahead and give that website one more time? Unleashing the
Yes.
Mind.
Unleashing your mindset,
Oh,
unleashingyourmindset.com.
okay. Yeah, and we'll have links for all this in the description. So anybody listening, don't if you don't get that written down, that's fine. We'll have it for you there. And then you said Facebook was Tommy the what?
Mind
One more time.
engineer. Yep. Tommy the mind engineer or
Tommy.
Tommy Walker the mind engineer. Either way, you're going to find me.
All right. Yeah, and we'll get all that. We'll get all that linked. Very good. This has been an interesting conversation, and we could probably spend hours talking about
Yeah.
it, or at least I could, because it does. The mind does intrigue me, and I will say, from as my as a regular guy that has grown up with fears and insecurities, and then had almost pretty much lost 2 years of my life due to depression and anxiety.
Mm,
I could really say that it's. Uh, I was going to seeking medical attention for the depression and anxiety, but I was also getting coached and counseled, and so I can relate to a lot of what you're talking about. It is it's reprogramming something in your mind. I'm not a subconscious expert, so I've got to
mm.
go out and check out your trainings and books, but I could definitely say that it's not every day I've got to put in work. Every day I've got to do something to remind myself of who I am, not who others maybe tried to
Yeah.
define me as.
Yeah.
So very good. It's been a great conversation, and we will get everything linked for everybody to check out. And anything else on your mind, or any parting words for our listeners before we go?
One more thing that I want to give for you guys as a value is whenever you feel somebody is triggering you, like, oh, my wife made me feel blah, remember that that's a creation of you. Your wife just brought up something within you. So my wife made me angry. Why did she make me angry? Because she made me feel not good enough. So I got to turn that around and say, I don't feel good enough. And my wife or my partner or whoever triggered that. And that's very important because as
Yeah.
we stand on that, we get our power back in our life and understand that it has to do with us. It has nothing to do with the other person. And I hope that makes sense and helps people out there regaining their power.
Yeah, no, that definitely is, and I mean, even to me, that hits with so much impact, because yeah, you've got to understand who you are, what you're capable of, and know those limiting beliefs.
Hmm.
Those came from somewhere else, from somebody else that had limiting beliefs, most likely, and they try to convince you unintentionally.
Exactly.
I can't say that my parents raised me the best way they could. I don't
Yeah.
think they would ever intentionally try to hurt me, but they have tragedies and impacts in their life that led
Yeah.
them to who they are. So,
Yeah.
all
Exactly.
right. Well, once again, thank you, Tommy, for hopping on a call with me and having this conversation. I think this will be a really good episode for the listeners, and I'll definitely be checking out your trainings and books and stuff online, and I'll give everybody a report back when I get to that point. So.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan, for having me over and letting me share this with your listeners. And thank you guys for listening.
And there you have it, my conversation with Tommy Walker. I hope you had a pen and paper handy and took plenty of notes. But you know what? If not, that's okay. This episode will be here when you're ready. Give it another listen. Take down those notes. So much to learn. There's so much to learn about how the human mind works. And really, in this conversation with Tommy, I feel like we just scratched the surface. There's so many more layers that we can peel back, and you know what? I will look to have Tommy on this podcast once again down the road. Now, if you've made it this far, if you're still listening, I appreciate you. I truly do. Thank you for sticking around. If you'd like to interact with me, there's a couple different ways we can do it. You could always find me on Facebook at Conquering Everest. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. I will make sure I have those links in the description below. And if you'd like to help out the cause, if you'd like to donate uh, any amount to help with this podcast, I would certainly appreciate it. And I do have a GoFundMe page where I'm looking to raise money, not only for help producing post and pre-production, but as well as upgrade the equipment and upgrade the studio. So if you'd like to help, by all means, please check out that GoFundMe page. Please give it a share. And if the timing's not right, I completely understand. This podcast will go on one way or another. And also, if you're looking for some life coaching, I would encourage you to go out to my website, www.conqueringeverest.com. Let's get you going and get you on the right track. Until next time, this is Brian, and I've got to say it right: aim high, be courageous, and go do amazing things.